Welcome to the Bond Business School Business Now video series. My name is Lisa Gouthorpe and I'm the Associate Dean of External Engagement. Today we'll be reinforcing that business fundamentals have not changed despite the challenging time we find ourselves in. Our panel today will focus on tourism. Joining our panel is Jonathan Fisher, CEO of Binabra Lodge and board member of the Gold Coast Tourism Industry Council. Barry Robinson, President and Managing Director of Windham Vacation Clubs International, and Bruce Harkness, Senior Vice President of Human Resources and Customer Relations of Wyndham Destination Asia Pacific. Joining them is Bond Business School academic, Associate Professor Mike Raybould. I'd now like to introduce our panel. Welcome Jonathan and Barry and Bruce, and I'll start with you, Jonathan. You're from Binabra Lodge, and can you tell the audience a little bit about what that lodge is?
Binabra Lodge was founded in 1933 and evolved to become one of the champions of ecotourism here in Australia. And it's a privately owned company, a for-profit company, and it was hit by a devastating fire in September 2019 where we lost our much-loved heritage lodge, 42 cabins and some 11 residents in the area. So we've been fighting both the recovery from bushfires, but also obviously with the rest of the world, COVID, ever since.
Gentlemen, what's your core business?
Well, Wyndham's a publicly listed company on the New York Stock Exchange. We're world's largest vacation ownership and exchange business. My team and I run everything outside of the United States, so a reasonable size territory. You know, a business that was growing exceptionally well until recent times.
There's two dimensions to your business. You've got the sales and the hotel operations.
Yeah, so we have vacation ownership and hotel operations, and look, if we sort of lead into it, you know, we've seen interesting times. Starting with the bushfires last year. Where a lot of our resorts were closed down, a lot of people were displaced, both employees and guests. And so, from an Australian perspective, just talking about Australia, because we've got operations in more than 14 countries that are active. Australian perspective, we thought it was catastrophic, at the time. It was disastrous, and it was extremely disastrous for a lot of people. And we just started to climb out of that when, the nation got hit with COVID. And if I start from my perspective, we first saw COVID with our operation in China, and our staff in China. Were affected, obviously closed, locked down for more than 8 weeks. We didn't see it venturing outside of China, so it actually caught us a little bit off guard. I think we handled it well, and we had a lot of learnings from the issues and the things that our staff faced in China. So that helped us forging into the war room, so to speak, for the other areas that we covered.
Do you actually have a property in Wuhan or Hubei?
No, but we have operations we have operations in Singapore.
Okay.
But we don't. We have hotels in Wuhan. But I don't oversee that part of the business.
Can you give us some idea of the scale of your operations? How many hotels, how many staff?
Yeah, so and I'll talk maybe more revenue-wise for our area of the business. So we do about $300-something million worth of revenue, about $78 million in EBITDA prior to COVID. Some 5,000 employees in this part of the world. So. It's a reasonable operation, and a growing one. We just bought a business in Japan that we're excited about, and especially leading up to the Olympics, which didn't eventuate.
Yeah, Jonathan, can you give us a bit of an overview of the scale of your operations there? How many staff?
Well, we went from about 67 staff in September last year down to a core of about 7 staff almost overnight. I've been with the company now 3 months, and we've climbed back up to about 20 staff now in anticipation of the reopening of Binibara on the 1st of September.
Yeah. Well, thanks for your time today, gentlemen, particularly at a time which is definitely the most challenging time our industry has ever seen. I know we had a meeting in February, I think, where Bruce was actually here on the university campus and Barry was dialing in from somewhere, Singapore. And that was February, and in February I don't think any of us had any idea of where we were going to be at this stage, that we could not have predicted this. Jonathan, the timeline for your series of events, and I'm trying to avoid the word crisis, is probably a little bit different. Can you talk us through what actually happened at Binibara? At what point did you realise you got a problem?
So I'm actually a Beachmont resident, which is the local village in the lead up to Binibara, and I got a call to my office in Brisbane when I was working with the National Trust on the Thursday. That would have been the 5th or 6th of September, to come down and prepare to evacuate. So I went down that afternoon, and we could see the fires coming across the hills at some pace. 2 days later, just 2 days later, they overwhelmed a huge army of local firefighters and sadly took out the lodge. On the Friday afternoon, we had an almost full hotel and campground. We had just, like we were saying, our friends from Windham, we were in a very healthy situation business-wise, but the small team there made a decision to evacuate that afternoon and saved a lot of lives by getting people out with probably about an hour and a half to spare before the road became difficult to pass. So that's the actual fire event, and we've been working with multi-levels of agencies ever since over the last 11 months.
Yeah. So I've seen the images of the burnt out lodge, and that must have been pretty heartbreaking walking through that.
Yeah, I was involved because it was a heritage listed property before the tragedy, so I knew the property quite well, and it was a very strange feeling to be standing surrounded by the ruins of what is
90 years of history or something.
Yeah, 86 years.
86 years.
86 years. But we have an amazing team. We have a chairman who is dynamic and has been cool, calm, and collected right the way through, and made a few phone calls and had a lot of phone calls from people from all over the world. From all levels of government straight away, and the very first thing that happened was a reconstruction council was created of all levels of government, and with a huge focus particularly on rebuilding the access road, which literally melted out and almost was destroyed. And a lot of the efforts over the last 9 to 10 months have been on rebuilding a road on the side of a cliff, literally, which has hampered obviously getting heavy vehicles in for the demolition clearance, the tree work, and so on and so forth. But we're at this stage now where we're looking forward, bizarrely, to reopening in a time where probably is a little bit challenging. But we're one of those businesses that I suppose is protected from COVID a little bit so long as Queensland stays healthy, and we are very thoughtful of our friends in other states and other countries. But we've always been a business which has been much loved by Brisbane, South East Queensland. So we're coming into a time where we think there's a pent-up demand for a return to healthy holidays and a bit of space. So if we can open, then we're feeling reasonably optimistic.
So in your case, the bushfire was the initial crisis, and we'll come back and talk about COVID later on.
Yeah, sure.
Maybe with respect to the Windham guys here, and I understand that your business was also affected by the bushfires in the Snowy Mountains. Is it Thredbo or?
Yeah, it was, at Dinner Plains and Mount Hotham. So both Dinner Plains, Mount Hotham and Lakes Entrance were evacuated. Actually, Dinner Plains, we got footage of the fire coming right up to the back of the resort, and touch wood, the wind changed and it drifted away. So we were fortunate to some degree, but it did close down that facility for some time.
So you breathed a sigh of relief, thinking, well, we got away with that, and then here we are in 2020. So at what point, what was the timeline for your business in relation to COVID?
We saw this unfold in Wuhan in November, early November, and then things just escalated dramatically, which I don't think anybody could have predicted the speed at which it unfolded. So I would say probably in the month of mid-March, we were in full-scale business continuity planning.
Yeah.
And our response planning involved, first of all, trying to understand the gravity of the situation, but also to put together a response to cover our international operations with a primary focus on Asia Pacific. So we really did need to scramble quickly. That was done in good partnership with our US corporate office as well in Orlando, in the States. But essentially, in terms of our own response planning, we're on our own under Barry's leadership. We acted very quickly, first and foremost, to make sure that our owner base and guests were safe. So looking at the areas that were actually within those hotspots and making decisions around which resorts that we were required to close and which we weren't. And that was obviously influenced heavily by government protocols and guidelines.
But on that note, just to jump in with them, I mean, we were first movers in a lot of areas. So we were one of the first hospitality or resort companies to mandate a closure. We were the first to, find different ways to support our staff, those that were put on furlough or stood down because of them. So we had, for example, on the Gold Coast here, our canteen we converted into a mess hall where people that were unemployed and couldn't avail of JobKeeper could come along and get one healthy meal a day there. It's normally around lunchtime. So I was proud of what the team have done, and a lot of people displaced in a lot of different ways. And I'm fortunate, but unfortunate in the sense of my home base is Singapore. I haven't been able to get back there since March, and I've got other colleagues in similar situations. But we're fortunate compared to a lot of other people that have been totally displaced. So I think the team around me. They move extremely quickly. I think we totally redefined our business. So, a few things that were always our mantra but came to reality was the word agile, to be agile in your business. And we certainly did show agility through the coronavirus situation. And the moves we had to make as far as the numbers of staff that we had to reduce, and Bruce can take you through that in a little bit. But that was to ensure that we had a business and to try and look far enough in the future to make sure that we were going to make it out the other end of COVID. And I think we're in a strong position at the moment.
I'm interested in the management sort of response immediately around that as the crisis emerged. How did you pull the management team together? Did you form I've used the term war room or crisis centre? The morning after, Jonathan, what was the process there?
Well, we've got two crises to talk about here. I wasn't involved in the immediate management of the fire. I was invited to become part of the Reconstruction Council, which I referred to earlier. The first response was always to look after your people. So it was very much about people's mental as well as their physical health, and looking after those people that on Friday had a job and on Sunday didn't. And a place like Binibara is tiny in comparison to what Barry's been talking about, but it was the major employer of Beachmont, and a major drive economic recovery and development in the whole area. So we had a lot of families that were very worried about their future, and the Gold Coast and the scenic rim tourism industry reached out immediately, and within 10 days or so, I think we had found jobs for all but one of those people that were displaced. So we looked after people's mental health, their physical health, and then their financial health. And then the big guns come in. Then all the heads of the different departments, state government were particularly helpful. The Federal National Bushfire Recovery Agency, the trust in my former life. Everybody working together, Queensland Parks and Wildlife, all those people working together on a very regular basis every 2 weeks. But there is a Queensland disaster recovery plan, a model which we worked through. And we, as I said before, we had a very steady chairman who's very experienced in tourism. Then when COVID hit, we had been given a home in the local school of all places to open up a small cafe, small community cafe, and we were just getting that up on our feet again. We had about 8 weeks of trading, and all of a sudden, bang, that had. And then again, it was a question of relying on a bit of common sense, but also a lot of support from planning done by the Queensland Tourism Industry Council, working with government on making sure that we had our COVID plans in place to make sure that, first of all, that again we're healthy. You know, the last thing that we wanted was to be doing the wrong thing and putting everybody else at risk again. So a lot of careful tick boxing and making sure that we were following the rules, and a lot of hard work and worry behind the scenes about just keeping the business solvent, because that was the issue. When the fires first started for us, I think they anticipated reopening in December, 3 months after the fire. Well, here we are nearly 12 months later, and the only revenue source we had was a small cafe, and that was closed down after 8 weeks. So it's been a pretty bumpy ride to not only manage the physical work that needed to rebuild the place that's been burnt down, but also just keep the money under control when it's all going out and nothing's coming in.
Yeah. Barry, you had an international resort group to hold together in those early days of what became evidently a major problem. What was your response there? Did you?
Well, I mean, globally we're looking at cash flow, liquidity of the business in general. So fortunately, and you know, sometimes you've got to be lucky. We'd done a securitisation just recently at the end of last year, so our cash reserves were strong globally. We hadn't pulled down on our $1 billion revolver, so financially we were in a reasonable position to weather the storm for a reasonable amount of time. And you know, back in March, we thought that time was maybe 3 months or something, and here we are in August. So we've made some stronger moves since then. You know, our business is, you know, globally still very stable and still very strong from a cash and liquidity perspective. But we redefined the business and looked at new innovative ways to do things. So we've launched some new products during this period. We've reduced our staff, and Bruce can talk about that, I think 40+%. Our revenues are down by 50%, but our margins are probably from 27% to about 47%. So we sort of tipped it upside down. We've gone from, another word that we like to use is, think entrepreneurially while focusing on corporate governance. So keeping some structure and corporate systems in place, but acting more entrepreneurial and leaning the business out. And that's sort of how we've restructured the business down here. But Bruce, you'd probably add some more.
I was going to turn to Bruce as Vice President HR. So what has been the impact on staffing levels, and how are you trying to keep people engaged, the staff that you still have on the books engaged?
I think to Barry's point, we've always had a very strong entrepreneurial culture. That's sort of been well ingrained throughout the business. You know, pre-bushfires, pre-COVID, it was something we always promoted. We talked about the necessity for empowerment. We talked about entrepreneurialism. We talked about innovation. That was always part of who we were. We were always championing that as an executive team. But what we saw as a result of both the bushfires and COVID particularly is that even with the difficult decisions that we had to make, where we lost some very talented and long-standing people within the business, we saw good engagement. Our people were genuinely engaged in the long-term future of the business. And those cultural mainstays that I mentioned actually started to come out through necessity. So Barry talked about us being agile. We were sort of forced to innovate quickly, but we did that on a strong cultural platform. So what we've seen is that there's been an acknowledgement that yes, we've had to make decisions, but there's an understanding why we had to make them. And I think that's because we took the time, perhaps more than before to really explain the reasons why to our people. And I think the way in which we were communicating with both our people and our owners and guests was a lot more transparent than we had been in the past. Not through any other reason, but these types of situations, certainly from a leadership perspective, give you a far greater level of humility when you're communicating, just by reflection. So we saw the workforce pick up and engage with us.
And I think our communication ramped up generally. I mean, Zoom's been a wonderful thing, and some of it's forced, but both with our customer and owner base, we've been a lot more transparent in our activities, and things that we might not have communicated before. We've made a lot of hard decisions, not all of them positive, but we've got the communication out there, and that's generally been received very, very positively. I mean, to put things in perspective, I talk about bubbles. All of our businesses are now operating in a separate bubble, and our management teams in different areas have had to step up to the plate. So we've enforced empowerment. We've always talked about empowerment, and you talk about it sometimes, but are you really empowering people? This time we've had to. So my people in Japan are operating by themselves. My people in China are operating by themselves. The executive team just can't get there to give on the ground direction, and everyone stepped up to the plate. It's been really exciting to see certain people step up to the plate.
Yeah. So in practical terms, what's your communication activity focused on staff?
Yeah, so we leveraged, traditional means just through activating newsletters and those types of things, but I think where things really changed for us was Zoom. The integration of Zoom was something we were already working towards, but it was a select few and it was still being very much trialled. But Zoom became, common language overnight. And it's been really positive for us because it's helped us stay engaged as a business. We've put some guidelines around how you should be using Zoom within the workplace, and everybody's to be on video and everybody's to be on time. But what we found is we got to know our workforce in a different way because we were working from home. So there was a dog barking, there was a cat meowing or a child in the background, but there was always something going on. So we saw another dimension to our workforce that we hadn't seen before. And that was the same in our own cases as well.
Well, messaging too. So Mike, to your point, is, and I'll just paint this picture. We had a corporate office in the Gold Coast that housed maybe 500 to 600 people. Within a week, they're all working from home, and they're all working via Zoom or some other communication medium. What we were able to do as a leadership team is to drop into meetings that we wouldn't normally drop into via Zoom, and even just to say hello and send a consistent message. So for me and my team members to be able to do that, and the receptiveness that we've seen over the portfolio, whether that's Thailand or Japan or whatever, it's sort of night and day, because normally those meetings are structured about, well, when am I going to visit, versus I can cover all those spaces within a week, just drop in.
So senior execs in an international business, do you think you've actually been able to make yourself more available through this?
I would say yes, yeah.
So at Binibara, obviously you'd have staff there who had been there for many years, part of the fabric of the place.
Absolutely. There's people that had been working there for 25, 30 years. There's the Groom family that founded in 1933 that are still involved now. And 2 weeks before we reopen, we'll be doing a camp out with Tony and Richard Groom and our chairman on top of Mount Robert, which wouldn't have been possible before the fire, to infuse some of that spirit of the place in. So that loyalty to the company comes from how they're treated and that sense of place. And it's interesting to hear your comments about Zoom, and I agree, it's been wonderful. The timing's almost uncanny. It makes me a bit suspicious, really, but I think it is going to change. I hope it does change the nature of local tourism, of that sense that people get rid of that fear of having to be in the office and what goes on if they're not turning up, and instead they will work more from home on a consistent basis and be able to take half day or full days off, which will drive more business into regional tourism areas, so that they no longer have to spend that 2 to 4 hours a day commuting up and down to cities.
Yeah. So we've talked a bit about staff. What about communications with customers and owners in your case? What have your strategies been around that?
We've had regular stakeholder workshops. Perhaps once every 6 to 8 weeks there's been a Zoom meeting or a Teams meeting where we've had up to 100 people join us online, which wouldn't have been happening before. And it's interesting actually, the demographics of those people. It's all ages. It's not just the young up and trendy IT people. It's people of all ages that are embracing video technology, so that obviously EDMs, newsletters, but particularly EDMs going out to databases are important. So
the Facebook page, which I follow.
The Facebook page. Yes, it's sometimes you have to watch how much you put on there. Not everybody's interested in everything you're interested in, but it's been much easier to engage through this crisis compared to the last crisis I faced, which was back in 2001 when we had foot and mouth in the Lake District. We had a similar situation there, where one minute we were getting ready for the new spring season and all of a sudden it was closed down for 6 months. We didn't have social media and video conferencing and all that kind of stuff then. And it was bloody hard, but I wouldn't say it's easy now, but certainly that communication, I hope, will become the norm and people won't go back to the work in the same way that they did and spend more time at Wyndham Resorts working distantly in the same way as they might be coming up to Binibara. So I think there is some reason to look forward to a different way of balance of life with work than we had before this crisis.
So Barry, obviously you have a highly engaged owner group. What's been your communication strategies with them?
Well, as I mentioned before, we've definitely ramped it up. We've been a lot more open, transparent in the way we've communicated. We actually just launched 2 days ago Windham TV. So it's semi-live TV where we're putting on cooking shows, free yoga for learners in advance, how you exercise at home without any equipment, short segments on photography, how to better utilise your camera or your phone and things like that are getting our owner base and guests really engaged with the product. And it's not selling them anything, it's just information out there, and it's
Wyndham lifestyle
being more service orientated. So all of that's been, I think, positive. I mean, sure, it's a balancing act because we've got 15,000 or 20,000 vacation owners in Victoria that currently can't travel anywhere, that have basically paid for their vacation and are sitting at home. So, part of it is to, figure out ways of how we keep our owners and our customers engaged during that period, and that they're enthused to travel once the COVID event sort of passes by.
Yeah, doubly frustrating for them.
But I didn't buy Zoom shares, unfortunately, before Zoom took off.
Yeah, we should have
all Marley Spoon. But just from a personal perspective, I think, learnings, and everyone will have a different perspective. I mean, for my last 25 years of sort of business life, I've been on the road most of the time. I've never been at home for this in one spot for this period of time. So it's been a balancing act for me as well, and it's given you time to reflect on things, think through different scenarios, improve my cooking skills via utilising Marley Spoon, which has been interesting. Like yourself, trying to get more healthier and take up those exercise routines that you wouldn't be able to
find a new activity.
Yeah, well, you can get more into more regular routines.
Well, we've been forced out of the gyms, and in my case, the swimming pool. So we've been forced to find other things.
Well, I think that's been a great takeaway, and I think businesses that will continue to thrive in this environment are the ones that'll see the positive in the situation. And there's always opportunity in chaos. So for us, there's been a lot of reflection as we've gone through this, but there's been a lot of very positive outcomes. And Barry was talking about our owner engagement strategy and how we're leveraging Zoom and how we're leveraging social media through Facebook and Instagram, and creating specific websites But we've also got a lifestyle program which is designed specifically to enrich our owners' lives through offerings where they can, take advantage of discounts online through our own program.
Yeah.
So that's been a real plus, and I think our owner base has really responded well to how we've engaged with them. We've also, as a leadership team, been a lot more visual, a lot more present with them as well through technology. So I think it has enabled us to really, I wouldn't say reconnect, but connect in a different way.
Yeah. It's interesting what you're saying about the social media and the video lifestyle segments. I mean, the technology has allowed us to do now what we probably couldn't have done 5 years or 6 years ago, and certainly not in 2001. No. And similarly at the university, we are able to do things now that we couldn't have done 3 or 4 years ago. Can we have a think about the future now? Let's think about where this is going. Do you think that all of these events have in any way fundamentally changed demand for travel, tourism, hospitality generally?
It's pretty early to say, but I'd like to think so. Looking forward, I'd like to think that the work-life balance will be improved, that people will be able to be as efficient and productive, but not so necessarily reliant on face-to-face. I think face-to-face business meetings will always be important. But I think it's just more of a balance, and as I said earlier in the piece, we're seeing more people working, but they're working from home and able to pop out to their local restaurant or shops that they wouldn't have been able to do before. My experience, again, going back to the lakes in 2001, is that after you've been sort of stopped from travelling, there is a pent-up demand. And certainly we're seeing that as we lead up to the reopening of Binibara. The phones are ringing. People really want to come out. There's almost a sense of duty to help those businesses that have gone through tough times. And I'm sure that will be the same with Windham as well, that when the Victorians and other people that are in lockdown at the moment let out, we'll be welcoming them and hoping to look after them. And I think people will realise they've reconnected with their families, whether they liked it or not. I know my parents have been married for nearly 70 years, and my mother's going mad. She's never spent so much time with my father before. However, the first thing that she will do when they go out, when they are allowed to come out, will be to come out to Australia and travel again, and realise that we have to stay connected face to face, but we don't necessarily have to work face to face.
Yeah. So do you think there's pent-up demand in the international resort sector then, gentlemen?
Well, yeah, so I'll pause this with sort of caution in the sense of, I think globalisation has been put on pause, and how long that's for, I'm not sure at the moment. I mean, we were pre-COVID, it was so fluid to get to places through low-cost carriers and so on, that everyone was visiting further distances. I think what it will drive is a lot more domestic tourism, I think, in the initial stages. I think a lot of people have learnt a lot of different experiences, like, I'm not as excited as I used to be about dining out all the time. I'm actually enjoying dining experiences at home or in different environments.
The thing I was most desperate to do during lockdown was to go out for a meal.
So I'm not. So I think things. It may take a while to get back to globalised travel, cross-border pollinations. I think you'll see a lot of more bubble scenarios. So hopefully, the Trans-Tasman bubble will start up first, maybe a bubble to Singapore. But even when they start up, you've got to get people's mind in that, connected again to be able, or not be able to be wanting to travel and to understand that the risk mitigation of COVID is gone. So,
I don't think anybody really enjoyed that kind of cattle class travel where you're all squashed in together. And I think if anything comes out of COVID, there's an opportunity for somebody to work out how to improve the experience of travel. We're not all so squashed together. There will be a price with that, but I suspect that a lot of people are thinking twice about jumping on very busy planes. I think that will need to be rethought.
Yeah, I mean, as somebody who has to fly economy, travel has only ever been a means to an end. So I'll endure the flight to get to the end destination.
Yeah, so there is an opportunity to improve that quality, but I think that once we come out of this, that yes, globalisation's on pause, but it's not stopped. I don't think it will come back.
Thinking about your specific businesses, what is it about your business that will continue to drive demand, do you think, in the future?
Well, we're pretty unique, as I say. We're the gateway of a World Heritage National Park, which has got a reasonable sized cities, Brisbane and the Gold Coast. So looking after our local customers is going to be important. We look forward to the domestic airports opening up properly again. But it's keeping true to what we're all about. We're all about healthy adventure tourism in natural spaces. And if we keep communicating that, make sure that we have very high standards of service, look after local staff. All of that is what's kept us going for 30 odd years, well, not 30 years, 80 years. 80 years, yeah. So we're looking forward to the next chapter of Binibara, the reopening of Binabara, and we were blessed with a beautiful heritage site before. In my former job, I would have sort of hugged the building and not let anybody touch it. Now I've got the world's best building site, Interesting that Windham got $1 billion. I might come and tap on their door to see what they want to build for us. But we've got to make sure when we rebuild that we don't lose that sense of place, and that word lodge in Binabra Lodge is incredibly important. It's evocative, that sort of sense of going up the mountain and seeing this beautiful building appearing out of the trees is something that we'll try and recreate, but make sure it's a little bit more fireproof this time.
Yeah, because the history is an important part of that product.
It's the history. The pioneers up there were remarkable. I mean, these are people that literally walked up there. Yeah. I mean, we're all so used to being so comfortable. You take your 4-wheel drive to the supermarket. These guys walked from Brisbane to Lamington National Park and then put up their tent. And so we got a bit soft in our old age, and now we need to probably get that pioneer spirit back a bit and get people used to getting out into the wild, and that's really what they crave after being locked down like this, I think.
Which is exactly what we were looking at about a week ago. So to our point, we want to continue to be innovative, but we went out to a place called Palmerville Station, which is 5 hours inland from Port Douglas, which is famous for gold mining in the early days, early 1800s or late 1800s. There was 30,000 people based out there. And to your point, I still can't fathom how they've got from Cooktown or whatever to find this gold in the middle of nowhere.
No, it's interesting. I mean, I did a lot in my former life. I did a lot of work up in Cooktown, and it was interesting because we had that Chinese boom then with the gold fields, and then it all changed in the turn of this last century. And now with the huge investment that the Asia Pacific has seen, you were thinking, well, this is unstoppable, but we've put it on pause at the moment, but I'm sure it will come back. One of the other things that's come out of this is some funding for master planning of our site, and at the same time a reconciliation action plan. It's a unique opportunity to think about the First Nations people at the beginning of this new process rather than for them to sort of be brought in at the end. And in terms of talking about the future, you've got to have a plan. You've got to, if you're going to be the custodians of place, you've got to really know what you're looking after and have sorts of, otherwise you become almost too entrepreneurial, and I think, well, I'll put a new building over there or a swimming pool down there, and you are in danger then of being reactionary. We need to be careful, we need to be steady, we need to plan for future disasters because they will come again. But I honestly feel that we are facing, after this pause, an opportunity to use technology to improve our quality of life and go on holiday more with our families.
More leisure time.
Absolutely.
Work-life balance.
Absolutely.
So what about the Wyndham Resorts business? What is it that's going to drive that in the next 5 years? Well,
I think the opportunity, for us, but also for the hospitality and tourism sector, is about selling certainty in uncertain times. So that's really looking at what are the inhibitors for people who don't want to travel, and a lot of that's about safety and security. That's always a top 3, top 5 prohibitor for people. If it's not safe and secure, people won't travel. So it's about giving people that surety in terms of that those travel corridors are safe, those travel bubbles that Barry was talking about, and the provisions are put in place to ensure that people's flight and journey to the destination is safe and secure. I think as well, for us, it's about giving surety to our owner base that we've done everything and we're doing everything that we can to ensure that our resort experience is both safe and secure as well. So putting in high standard cleaning protocols and regimes around COVID prevention is key. But also, I mean, adding value and as always, giving people a great experience on site. So we've done a lot of things under the resorts and activities that have, value add to the experience. Everything from, hobby farm at our resort in Tasmania through to, paddle boarding and paddle boats at other resorts as well. So bringing back that family feel and bringing back those added value experiences for our owners and guests to enjoy.
I think partnership's important, and we were a big part of the local community, and we're reaching out now to plan for a future that fills up everybody else's accommodation as well, and encourages entrepreneurship at home and activities, the local horse riding company, the local walking company. And the only way that we have survived through this difficult times is through the support of the community, and particularly all levels of government. We are a tourism industry that depends on the infrastructure that governments provide, and they've been very helpful. And we need to give back now and make sure that everything we do is about being custodians of our destination, not just a place to make money.
Yeah. I mean, for us, our vacation ownership business in particular is unique in the sense of as soon as the taps turn back on, so as soon as people can travel, our resorts will run at high 80 to 90% occupancy. So that influx into those local regional communities is not only just great for our resort and our staff morale, but for all facilities, auxiliary facilities around it, so restaurants and so on, because predominantly our products are units, self-contained units. So people go out shopping, they go and do activities. I mean, there's lots of studies around, people that own vacation ownership have more disposable spend when they're on holidays because they've already paid for their accommodation. So
one of the things I just want to touch on there on staff, when we've got high occupancy and stuff like that, we need to make sure that we have enough staff to look after those people. One of the challenges we've got at the moment as we are advertising is that there's an awful lot of government support out there through JobSeek and JobKeeper, and for the kind of the casual part-time jobs that are around in tourism, and I might just say I'm not emphasising that's all that's in tourism. You can have a proper career. That level of financial support through JobKeeper and JobSeeker is challenging when you are trying to recruit casual jobs, because there's not a lot of enthusiasm to get out and get a job at the moment. But we're trying to say to people that we've been around for 86 years, we intend to be here for another 86 years. So when those support schemes finish, then you want to be coming to work for us.
Yeah. So, can I have one more question?
You can have one more question.
What needs to be put in place now? What pieces need to come together for you to start getting your business back to something approaching normal? Barry, maybe start with.
Well, I think the golden the rainbow, the gold at the end of the rainbow is a vaccine. Yeah. So the announcement of a vaccine and a working vaccine. So I'm not sure whether it's the Russian vaccine or somewhere else, but a vaccine that is endorsed will go a long way to stabilising economies and getting people back moving again.
As a first stage, opening up domestic interstate borders, would that have a big positive effect for your businesses?
Oh, 100%. But you've got Darwin saying that they're not opening for 18 months. So, and look, that's not a big part of our business, but it does have a flow-on effect. You've got Western Australia that's closed their borders fully. Tasmania's closed fully. We only really hear about Queensland, but it's not just Queensland, right? So I think South Pacific, I would like to see South Pacific opened up first because the cross Tasman travel and tourism is huge. I mean, that's the biggest inbound outbound market for both countries.
Well, I think it's case by case. I mean, our current business relies on local business, but the Crop and Wildlife Sanctuary was when I left as high as 70% international, 30% domestic. So they really do need the borders to reopen. But I think let's keep Queensland clean and healthy, and welcome back our friends from interstate as soon as possible and give them a really good holiday after a very difficult time.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for all the feedback. I guess there might be some tourism operators watching these videos, and you've got a lot of experience. So in this current climate, what tips could you give these operators to survive where we are at the moment?
You've got to look after your staff. That really is what it's all about. They're the people that are most affected by the downturn if they are worried about their jobs and the future, and they're also the people that you can't reopen without. So look after your people.
Yeah, great. And Barry?
Well, I think continue to think innovatively. You can't get stuck in the old regime because things are thrown at you, whether it's a bushfire, SARS or COVID. So you need yourself and your teams to be flexible and agile.
I would agree. I think it's, if you think you're going to open the doors business as usual once this has passed, I think that's probably a fundamental mistake. I think it's looking forward as to what needs to change and how you can change and innovate as a business as we come out of this. There has to be something different.
That's great. Well, thank you, gentlemen. Thank you for tuning in to the Business Now video series. We'll see you next time.